Welcome and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I'm your own personal sales maven here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to master your sales conversations. And I'm pretty excited about what we're about to do because this is one of the Mastering Excellence series episodes. And I brought on an incredible guest for you. Now, if you're not familiar with the Mastering Excellence, this comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And when you understand the structure of how somebody is achieving a very high level of success in some area of their life or business, you can then implement that structure and put it into your life and business in that area so that you can get exceptional results for you. So that's the context. And today's guest is Laurie Nichols. Now, if you haven't met Laurie, let me tell you about her. She is a certified coach, facilitator, and heart centered guide for women redefining win win in work and life. She brings 30 plus years of professional experience, hard won wisdom, and empathy to her work as a trusted confidant and coach. From the early days of her career in the investment industry, Laurie recognized how common it is for hidden agendas, expectations, and rules to impact women at all stages and levels of their careers. Following the sale of her business, she gravitated towards coaching with a focus on helping women professionals navigate challenging interpersonal dynamics and cultural obstacles, keeping them from the success they deserve and loving their work. She delivers heartfelt encouragement along with a clear strategy so each client achieves their personal definition of success. Laurie Nichols, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Nikki Rausch. So good to be here.
I'm so happy you said yes to this. I always like to give the audience a little bit of context. We have known each other now for quite a few years. I'm trying to think of did we first meet when I taught a workshop? Is that how we
Yes.
first met?
Yes. And it was love at first sight on my part.
It was love it for me as well, my friend, for sure. I don't remember how many years ago that was, but it had to have
Probably
been.
7 or 8, probably 8, I would guess.
Yeah, I was thinking like 2016.
Because I made my big leap from my old firm and took some time and went to coaching school and all that kind of stuff. And I want to say it was 2 or 3 years after starting my coaching practice
Yeah.
that I met you and kind of changed that trajectory of my personal transition. And yeah, so it has been a minute.
It's been a minute. And I have had the great pleasure of walking alongside you in your journey for a few years. We coached together, um, and getting to see the dynamic of your business grow, having some insight into your work, um, and just the kind of impact that you were making in these organizations that you were working for. And then we had a conversation, maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago, maybe now. And it just struck me then that you're still doing this incredible work that you're doing. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, but that you really have found kind of this new awareness about like what really lights you up and
Mhm.
gets you kind of going. And I'll let you talk about that. I won't say, but that's really what I was like. I really want you to come on the podcast and talk about this because the topic that we're going to talk about today is how to know when to stay and when to walk away. And I know you always do that. Should I stay or should I go?
Mhm.
And I just think that there's so many points in our lives as business owners, as people, where we have to make these really tough decisions. And you're somebody who guides people through that. So we talk a little bit about the work that you do and also just the focus that you have now and the why behind it.
Yeah, so it's been interesting because part of my journey was just even getting comfortable with the idea I'm going to be a coach. I'm not going to be a managing partner of all those things that were more air quote alert traditional.
Yes.
And so going into this transition period after selling my company with my former partners, there was that getting used to the idea of doing something completely different, doing something that's more aligned with who I am. And yet, I still had a kind of an unconscious attachment to, I'll say, doing kind of businessy work,
Mhm.
and it has been work that I've enjoyed. It has been a privilege to work with the companies and these business founders and owners that I've worked with over the years. And yes, they have primarily been men. I'd say 90% of my clients over the last 8 years have been men.
Mhm.
And not that I don't love men, but my part of my if you want to call it epiphany, I wouldn't say it was an epiphany, it was more like this kind of this awareness that would not go away. It's kind of like what I was seeing that I could no longer unsee was just this, it's that gap between where women are, and especially in the financial services investment industry, where these differences or these gaps between the opportunities for women and men, they're quieter now than when I started. Because let's just say I started in the 80s. All right, there's that. And things were different. And yes, things got better.
Mhm.
But how much of that too is kind of like a rationalization that we go through to just like, it's not that bad.
Or it's not as bad as it was when I was in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that
and it's
feels a
like,
little dismissive too.
yeah. And so I think that, part of what has happened for me in the last, really it's like probably 2 years or so, is just being in this stage of life also where, you know, every year that goes by, that growing awareness of just how precious time is.
Mhm.
And I just started feeling myself called back to my own client tools around values and some of those things, and even seeking out new values, online exercises, that kind of things, because I feel like I just had this inner knowing that even though I was doing good work,
Yeah.
even though I enjoyed my clients, it was not a mission, and felt like I want to do something that really matters to me
Yeah.
and matter in the lives of the clients that I work with,
Mhm.
and was drawn back to something that has moved me since I had my first Barbie and decided I was not going to be a nurse or a secretary. Not that any of those things are bad,
Right.
but I at a very young age, um, always felt like things were unfair. I used the F word a lot back then, and it was unfair. This doesn't
Yeah.
fair. And
Well,
so this growing awareness of a lot of the stuff still exists. It's just very quiet.
mhm.
It's not as in your face, and yet we are talking in October of 2025. And there's a comfort level with going back to a different time
Yeah.
where things may be more in your face. And so
And still very unfair.
it's still
I
very
just want to say.
unfair. And so, and I'm not going to bore you or your listeners with all the stats, but, especially again in financial services and investments, even in parts of the business where there are a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities, it's not the same for women. And compensation, like it's pretty stubborn at like women earning 70%.
Mhm.
And it's the classic, the goalpost being moved a lot in terms of, what it takes to get the promotion or get, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. So to go out on your own and start your own firm.
Mhm.
Um, and yet, it's like what other choices might be available that you
Mhm.
could really connect with if you had the space and support to really connect with what's not working. And then I would say, for real, what's really not working.
Mhm.
And knowing at a deeper level, kind of more consciously, that the real rub, I always use that word. The real friction for me where I'm at is not just these things that maybe kind of surface that annoy you every day, but it's really getting to the heart of what's the real issue here? And is that something that you're willing to have, like, kind of grow the skills it takes to maybe renegotiate, navigate the situation differently so
Hmm.
that you can be at peace with it? Or is it, can I say hell no?
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
can say
say,
that.
or hell no, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And doing that in a, shall we say, an emotionally intelligent way. So it's not about burning bridges, but it's just about just accepting probably, I'll say what your body is probably telling you,
Hmm.
and trusting that instinct and seeing the kind of like a wider perspective of what's really possible.
Yeah.
And it's not about going in and saying, F you, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's more about like, okay, so what's the game plan now?
Yeah.
And getting
Yeah.
some support for that. And I think, I may have told you this, but I did what I called a listening tour starting last
Yeah.
December.
Yeah.
And that went on for about more than 6 months. And just the stories that I heard from a lot of women still in those trenches. I talked to CPAs, a lot of wealth managers. I talked to executive women in uh, large banks. I just talked to a lot of women to get their sense of, what they're experiencing. And the women's ages ranged from late 20s up to 50 or late 50s and even early 60s.
Hmm.
There were so many common threads. And a big part of it was just how quietly we've been conditioned to just, it's kind of the way it is. And so you navigate around the edges,
Yeah.
or it's kind of like that energy of just settling. Well, it's not that bad.
Hmm.
Where else would I go? Just,
Yeah.
all that kind of thinking that keeps you in place. And so there wasn't one, well, there kind of was one thing that really pushed me kind of to really think, oh, I'm going to make a big change. And and that was just some of the political changes with, you know, Roe v. Wade, being reversed, just things where it's like, yeah, women's rights are, the Equal Right Amendment never passed in the
Yeah.
US. And so really there is no kind of legal framework really protecting women's rights. And then I think the thing too that has just become so obvious is how it's so baked in that around how if you're a woman and your leadership style, qualities, characteristics, way of communicating doesn't match the way the like in an entrepreneurial situation, the way the founder of the company thinks it should be, you may not get that feedback, but it is holding you back because in their mind, you don't fit as um, most of my work has been around succession planning. And so that's another one of those things. It's just like, wow, there's so many great women that aren't getting that opportunity, or they have to work so hard, like the effort they have to go to try to prove themselves to be worthy of being that successor in
Hmm.
a for a business transition or succession plan. And it's nonsense just because a woman's way, and not all women are the same,
Right.
so
Right.
there's that whole thing of, oh well, you don't come across like your presence is not, strong enough,
Hmm.
as your leadership presence, your executive presence, some people might say. And yet, you better not be too strong.
Right. Yes.
And
Oh, I
so
know these. I've
that
been there
there's
in corporate. Yeah. Yeah.
and so that very much still exists, that you have to somehow figure out the rhythm of the tap dance where you're at, just
Yeah.
to prove yourself,
Yep.
and to just be, much less thrive. And and I think that it's just, it kind of gets to the kind of the neuroscience of how we're wired as people, and the emotional intelligence skills that are, um, women are not just magically equipped with elevated emotional intelligence. There can be a lot going on because you're not allowed, or you don't feel like you're allowed to be candid, or, you know, um, speak candidly, give feedback. This,
Hmm.
all the things that women do to kind of, you could say, dim their light, but it's really
Yeah.
just masking and trying to figure out how to get along. And it takes a toll.
Yeah.
It
Which,
takes a toll on your body, it takes a toll on your spirit,
yeah.
robs it. And I'm such a big advocate for women love not just being successful, but enjoying the ride.
Yeah, because the ride goes fast, especially
If
the
the
older
ride
I
goes
get, the
fast.
faster it's going, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's that. And again, this is one of the reasons I want to have this conversation because I think there are always times where we come into these situations of feeling unsure about should I stay or should I walk away? And I had one of these moments many years ago in my career. I was very successful at the company I was working for. I was their top producing rep in North America. I was making really good money and I was kind of bored. Like I'd been doing the job for a while and my VP flew in, we sat down and we had lunch and I said, I'm really interested in like what else is there for me in this organization? Like can I, is there an opportunity for me to move up? Is there an opportunity for me to take on a new responsibility? And he said to me, you know, I just have to say, I want you to know you'll never be promoted to a national sales manager position. And I said, well, why is that? And he looked at me like, I can't believe you're asking me this question. He said, you're a woman. And I said, okay, I really appreciate this feedback. Like, thank you so
Good to
much.
know.
And I was
Something that
very
can't change
grateful.
right now.
Yeah, I was really grateful that he, spoke it so candidly. And that was one of the reasons I specifically went to work for this company because I wanted to work for him. Because I appreciated his style. And even though I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, I can't believe he said that to you, but he was being honest
Yeah,
about the
it's
situation. It
better to
wasn't,
know.
yeah, and it wasn't his decision, right? Like that was just the company that I worked for. And so I left. I left the company. Um, they ended up having to hire two people to replace me, and it
Mhm.
cost them more money. And they then tried to get me back about a year and a half later, tried to recruit me to come back, offered me quite a bit more money. And I just said, no, thanks. It was the like, do you stay or do you go? But it was a scary leave,
Yeah.
I will say. So, okay, so I want to jump into some of these questions because I think in any spot that you find yourself, whether you're working for an organization or whether you're just even thinking about this from a perspective of like, do I keep this client or not? Because as a business owner, sometimes we have to make those decisions. Or do I keep this offer? Do I keep doing something or do I let it go? Right. Like, so I just think this kind of decision process will work across the board. Again, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast to have this conversation. So, my first question, I'm going to tweak it just a little bit because I usually say, if I got to step into your shoes for the day and be you, like, how lucky would I be? And, um, what are some of the ways I would have to think or have to pay attention to when I get that first like inkling of the rub that you said with a situation? Again, what regardless of what the situation is, but when I first start to get that rub, what is going on? Like what am I noticing? I'm you. What am I noticing? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What's going on?
You know, I'm a pretty intuitive person, and I can feel a vibe sometimes. And I could feel a vibe coming from somebody or
Mhm.
in a situation. But I'm also, I just have this natural ability to see relationships and what's working, what's not. I can feel just the energy between people, and it's almost like the kid that could see that the emperor is not wearing any clothes. I can see people's blinders, even though they may not know they're there, and I could see how people interact and stuff like that. And that's not the rub. It's when I see unfairness.
Mm,
And when I see somebody's biases coming through. And so, you know, and I can see that in all kinds of scenarios, not just, in my work with clients, but for sure working with some of the leadership teams that I've worked with, and that where you could just see the dynamics and recognize that some business owners and some leaders are not really willing to change their perspective.
hmm
And that can be kind of a rub.
Yeah.
And I've seen so many, especially women, not just women. I've also seen some pretty great guys that struggled with this as well, but where there are these unvoiced expectations and or assumptions to not been voiced. So you are constantly having to pretzel yourself to try to figure out if you're doing the right thing or not,
hmm
which is exhausting because you're not really getting clear direction, not really. And as a coach, that would be something. But I for sure, like, because I can see it, and you can
hmm
see it in the declining relationships, the trust that's getting diminished,
hmm
and the exhaustion of the either the members of the leadership team, or if I've been engaged by uh, an individual client, their exhaustion and just talking about what they're experiencing. And so in my own shoes, it's a lot of that I can just recognize where this friction is and
hmm
where it lies. And it kind of wakes something up in me. And part of it is because of my own experience that I rationalized and tolerated for probably a good decade before I exited my old role and industry. And by the time I did, I had physical stuff going, health issues,
Uh-huh.
basically,
Yeah.
that took a good year to resolve. And, just things that uh, just they'll impact me forever because I let that stress, I wore stress as a badge of honor for
Yeah.
decades,
Yeah.
and prided myself on what I could handle and what I could take and stand up for myself, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But um, but yeah, so now if you were to step into my shoes now, I'm much less, I'm not as quiet. If I
hmm
see something, I say something now.
Okay.
And
So,
I'm emotionally intelligent. At least that's
yes.
my intention
Yes,
when
you
I do
are.
that. But that's a big part of it, is that if I see something, I'm going to say something.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to comment on a few things that I picked up, but also and ask if you have some if I say something that doesn't quite resonate, please correct. But for the listener, when you're thinking about you find yourself in this situation, you're starting to feel that rub that like something's not quite right here, something feels off, that some of those indicators in a relationship is when there's other people involved is you mentioned this idea of like feeling so unsure about maybe where you stand with the
Hmm.
person. And so you're constantly having to, I think you used the word pretzel yourself to try to like fit. I think that is a really good, like, first kind of awareness. So when you start to notice that,
Juggling, tap dancing,
yeah.
changing the mask. Oh, that one didn't work. And it's not a conscious thing necessarily,
hmm
but the kind of one of the early indicators, if you will.
Hmm.
How tired are you at the end of the day?
Oh, that's a good one.
And I talk a lot when I do presentations and trainings for people about these blinking yellow lights. And the blinking yellow light is disappointment, frustration, a sense of annoyance that's pretty present most of the time. But it's the frustration. It's kind of like you go up that emotional scale,
Yeah,
or I should say you go down the emotional scale is a better way to put it.
right.
And there's a point where disappointment tips into frustration. Frustration tips into anger. And so it's these emotional signals that you're probably going to notice in your body
Hmm.
before you are consciously aware of them. And I think that that's one of those things that if you, and this is kind of it's an expression that's been used a lot over the last couple of years, but it's so true. If there's a lack of psychological safety,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you're a goldfish in a fishbowl. Do you really know you're in a fishbowl and that you're breathing water? Probably not, because it's in the water.
Yeah.
You live in this water and you are swimming in it, and the water is it doesn't allow for candor.
Hmm.
Candor is not the same as conflict. Too many organizations, conflict avoidance is in the air, it's in the water, and so if you don't feel safe or that you can trust saying something, or I don't know, asking a question to clarify expectations or assumptions,
Hmm.
that's a pretty good indicator. And you'll feel it. You'll
Yeah.
feel if there is anxiety or discomfort in just asking a question, speaking
Yeah.
up at a meeting,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I see for some women entrepreneurs, a lot, other solopreneurs like myself, there can be that they can have similar feelings with clients.
Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that, that every once in a while I'll come across a client or have a client. And by the end of our sessions, my sessions are usually 50 minutes. So by the end of the session, I'm exhausted.
Yes.
And it's not exhaustion from the like, just
Good
the
work.
work, right?
Yeah.
Like the good work. Because actually, when I get off a
Well
client
spent,
session,
or
yeah,
you're toast. And
yes,
there is a difference between well used
yes.
versus wow.
Yeah, like flat out, I got nothing. I've
Yeah.
got nothing left. I'm exhausted. And that usually is a sign, like you said, you mentioned this idea of like you're changing your mask. It's like I'm working so hard to stay in rapport with the person
Yes.
that I feel exhausted by it. And I'm willing to do it, right? For the client's sake, I'm willing to do it, but not for an extended period of time. I will find that those are the clients that I'm happy to bless and release and let them like move on to to whatever is a better fit for them. Because if I'm having to work that hard
Mhm.
to stay in rapport with somebody, that it's usually an indicator that we're not gonna like, I don't feel like I'm be able to be my best,
Yeah.
bring my best with the expertise that I have in those situations. So that's a good indicator of that, like being really tired. And for me, it's not even at the end of the day, it's at the end of the session. I am exhausted. I feel
Yes.
like my brain has worked
And if you see
hard.
somebody's name on your calendar that like the day before, you're planning your day, planning your week,
Yeah.
and you get that little, is it dread?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Gotta. gird yourself.
Yeah, you got to pull up your big girl pants and like just dive in. The water is
So
warm.
that's one of
Yeah.
those indicators again that, you know, it's not to beat yourself up that you're in this situation, but I would also put out there, it could be that moment to pause. You have an engagement, you're gonna, even myself, it's like I would complete an engagement and
Yeah.
do my best because
Yeah.
that's also a value that I hold, that idea of win-win, that they're going to get their value. Uh,
Same.
I'm going to feel good about it. And here's part of that process that can come into play. It's doing the inner work to get that better sense of understanding yourself more. And you could say, understanding who your ideal client is, um, at this deeper level to be able to
Hmm.
understand. So, what is it? And it's not about negatively judging that client, it's more about understanding yourself. What is it that makes this person not feel good? And, because that's the other F word that I really like is feelings. And feelings, they do, because they are your warning system,
Yeah.
your indicator of this is good, this is fun, this makes me happy, this I am in flow, this just, all those good things
Hmm.
that are good feelings, and not to try, not work so hard to, because in the moment you may need to set those, like the frustration or whatever it is that may pop up, like in a client session or working on a project for a client or that kind of thing. um or if you know you're working in a firm, it's like setting that aside to do what you've got to do. But I think it's so important to make that time, and I'll even say invest in your own well-being,
Hmm.
understanding at a deeper level, what is it? Because the more you learn what that is, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
The kind of person that lights you up, or the kind of person that, wow, that we can just get that collaborative thing going. I think back to when you and I were working together. She gets me. She just really gets me. And so I could process out loud the way I like to. And
Yeah.
you just, we just had this great, easy way of working together. And so whether you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur, the more you understand you,
Hmm.
it starts with you. And it's not judging yourself negatively either. Like, oh, you know, like somehow you're wrong because you either don't want to work with this wide variety of people, or I'll put it this way, at a certain age, I can't and I won't.
Yeah.
It's owning that value that my well-being matters as well.
Yeah.
So if there are certain clients that um, maybe they're just not fun, you know, how can you discern that when you're doing a discovery conversation, or how
Hmm.
somebody may go through that process of bringing a new client on? How can that be incorporated into your approach to just honoring, being honest with yourself? Yeah, these are the kind of people I like to work with. And I
Hmm.
do this with my succession planning clients too, because your successor, if you're going to be working together for a while, it's kind of like a marriage. So it is good if you like them.
Yeah.
Because, and if you're that younger generation and you're being recruited to be a successor, this is where a lot of my work now was inspired. If you don't like them as a boss, as the founder, owner, your boss, it is not going to be better. And and will the dynamic change, the interpersonal dynamic change, even if you become a shareholder or a future owner, or any of that kind of stuff? It may, but will it if you're not intentional about changing that dynamic?
Yeah.
It's that owning your right to understand yourself better and the importance of understanding yourself better so that you can kind of grow your own inner, wisdom, if you will. But it's also that knowing that almost like the kind of a radar or something of just being able to say, these are my kind of people. And I know that because fill in the blank. These
It
are the
seems
kind
like there has to be a
of,
conscious decision, right? Of like,
yes,
I'm willing to invest the time to learn what are the things that work and what are the things that don't work so that I can identify them quickly. In a sales situation, the advice I give with my clients oftentimes when they're, especially if they're unhappy with a certain type of scenario or certain type of client, usually we can find a question that they can ask in their discovery that will allow them to uncover whether or not this is an ideal client for them just by the questions that you ask at the beginning. So you don't get to that part way later where now you're trying to go like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Like there's usually a question or two that can be asked that will help. At
yeah.
least maybe it won't flush it all out, but it'll get rid of a lot of it. I do want to ask you a question just from everything you're talking about. One of the things that comes to mind here is like, how do you identify or what's an internal question that you might give to us or to one of your clients to guide us to ask ourselves how to reliably separate temporary frustration from a deep, persistent mismatch?
Ooh, that's a really great question. Everybody's probably a little different in that regard, but I kind of, again, I keep going back to this, but it's that it's the felt sense.
Mm,
It's the flash of annoyance or frustration that can come from, maybe it's a conversation with a client or, a business partner or your boss, that where you usually have pretty good rapport and it's kind of just it's that flash of annoyance or frustration versus it's and I think this is part of that inner work is like knowing what are your physical indicators, if you will. Shoulders are up here. That sense of that's hard to put into words, but you know it.
yeah.
Or, I've had clients where they start to perspire and sweaty palms or clenched hands. I mean, there's all these signals that your body tells you, and
Mm,
those don't typically start to happen overnight. So it is kind of part of that internal warning system that you can pause in the moment. Okay, I'm feeling frustrated, but it's not coming from this, that um, physical felt sense. It's just in the moment. And
mhm.
part of the practice can be it's centering yourself when you're working with if it's somebody that you've typically had challenges with, it's like what is your practice going to be so that you because if we're anticipating somebody unconsciously anticipating that your conversation is going to be difficult, or every time I do a call with this client, it's difficult. And that that sense is like it's kind of like you've got these gauges, one on each shoulder. One is red for the stress, like you're triggered, your emotional or your nervous system is triggered, versus happy hormones over here.
Yeah.
And if this is up here, or even if it's just kind of hovering in this place of I'm armoring myself up, I can
Mm,
and all of this is can be so unconscious. And so that's why it's like that making the making yourself enough of a priority that you can just say, I need to understand this. I may not make huge changes right in this moment, but if I can understand it, I can bring my nervous system down, be neutral, and start to learn what are the practices that work for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're in, if you have engagements that you need financially,
Yeah.
or
I
a
need that
job that
client, right?
you
Yeah.
you really can't make a change right now because you've got kids and obligations, etc. But then what can we do to help you kind of grow that self-awareness and bring in some practices to help you recognize. So again, it's the yellow flash. My light is flashing. And what can I do in the moment? What can I do when I have time to anticipate and prepare?
Mm-hmm.
So it's bringing a little more intentionality into just your way of being, and you're not wrong. Like if your instinctual response to a person or a situation is does not feel good, that does not make you wrong.
That
It
feels very powerful, what you just said.
does not mean that they're wrong or a bad person. It
Right.
could just simply be we are not a mix,
Yeah.
or we are not a fit. And so I think that that's one of the things that also just has come up so strongly for me relative to women is that there's been this kind of pervasive message of we're somehow flawed, just like whatever soft skills. I mean, the fact that characteristics or skills that a lot of women possess more naturally, that those are soft and devalued, and they're not as important as blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be, oh, I don't know, nice, not too nice. Not nice at my own expense, but I can be nice. I can be a good communicator. I can be a good listener, and I can be really great at technical analysis of whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can be really good at, whatever that is. Um, so I think that that's such a powerful thing, is just to be able to say, I'm not wrong for feeling this way, but it's a disservice to myself if I don't understand this better. What's the root of this? And it's not about therapy or that kind of thing, but it's just understanding what is it that um who are my people? And
Yeah.
it's like what kind of people can I be in relationship with, that I can collaborate with, that I can serve? When I was on my listening tour, I talked to a number of young women who did not have great experiences with, I'm just going to be candid, older male clients. And, in one case, in more than one case, where somebody's taking over the business of an older professional, and they're the successor, and the clients that don't want to continue. And there's no reason other than they're female.
Mm.
And so, or they're working with the older client, male client usually, where the kind of dismissive, you're just a girl kind of
Yeah.
energy. And
Yeah.
these are not young girls. These are professional women.
Women. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, anyway, so it's knowing that all that's out there, all that can be true, and what kind of agency do we still have? And what can I do to more anchor into this is what makes me feel solid, safe, um, clear,
Yeah.
and that energy of not just the neutral energy, but the energized sense of, especially if I'm making a decision to stay, I'm going to do it from this other, like with grounded in what's important to me, and ideally with some up-leveled, if you will, skills around communication and managing your own emotional state, to minimize or start to reduce that time spent triggered.
Yes.
And I always think of, I share this with clients, that if you're awash in stress hormones all day while you're working, that it's science. It's gonna take a toll. It
Yeah.
just is.
But I
And
want to go back to, just and then I want to ask you this next question and also for time. But when I was saying like this question around being able to identify, is this a temporary frustration, or is this something that really does require, or that like a big change, right? Whether making that decision, stay, walk away. um and I'll tell you, this super random, but my longtime sales mentor, he was my sales mentor for 20 years before he passed, and he gave me a lot of really great nuggets. Most of them cannot be repeated, uh, just because of his style. But one thing he said to me, when I think about like situations where I find myself where I'm like, I'm feeling frustrated, but is this a temporary frustration, or is this something that I need to like take action, speak up, like make a change? And his was, he used to say, if you're walking around wondering why everybody you're coming into contact with that day is a real a-hole, then
Mhm,
you need to go take a look in the mirror and go, it's not everybody, it's me. Like, and
mhm,
so having some, I think, discernment to go, like, am I off today? Am I having a bad day? Am I rubbed the wrong way by this because I didn't get enough sleep, or maybe I'm hungry, or maybe I'm, whatever, there's something else going on. And that to me is like that temporary frustration, which oftentimes can help improve my attitude when I recognize that, oh, the problem may actually be my attitude versus the problem is everybody else. And so the way I make some discernment around that is that this idea of, if I feel tired having to interact with a person, then that's usually an indicator that there's some kind of a disconnect there. And I need to decide, is that a relationship or a conversation or a client relationship I'm going to continue to have? Or do I bless and release?
yeah.
Versus, Nikki, you probably need like to get your blood sugar up because everybody's getting on your nerves. Right. So,
You used a word that is so important, and it's one that I wish I had understood differently when I was much younger. And it's the D word,
oh, the D
from
word.
F to
Yes.
D, and it's discernment. And how, and I see this a lot, and this was true for me as well, that because you're absolutely right. You could just be having a bad day or an off day, and for any number of reasons, tired, uh, low blood sugar, it almost doesn't matter. But it is being able to discern.
Mhm.
And I think that, the caution that I would express is how women can be so conditioned to rationalize what they're dealing with,
Mhm.
what they're experiencing, that it goes back to it's not that bad, or,
Yeah.
it's just these quiet, unconscious ways that we take it in the chin,
Yeah.
and we don't realize it. And it may not be super overt, especially, the last decade or so. Have women made progress with, in the types of roles and all that kind of stuff? Sure. And yet some of these things still remain, and they are pervasive. And
Mhm.
so there's that, but then there's also this in your own work, where you work, who you work with. It could be the culture, it could be individual people. If you're a solopreneur, it's the type of clients you work with. If you have, oh gosh, centers of influence, because that was a hard one for me the last 7 or 8 years. There are centers of influence that I would have those constricted feelings of, okay, I just because they're, you know, they could be a great source of referrals. They're important in some way. And
Mm,
that felt sense of, it's not unsafety, but it's like I'm dreading it. Anywhere from full on dread to just, okay, I got to do this. And sometimes that's true, but how much as women we're kind of conditioned to be the one that always takes it. And
yeah.
it's an exercise I have encouraged people to kind of, um, you call it exercise, almost like a tool. It's that idea of win-win,
Yeah, please
real,
dig into this
real
because
win-win.
this is so you and your work, this idea of win-win.
And it's part of the fairness.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me years ago, I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
I
I
love that
can't
book.
remember which habit it is, but it's got to be win-win or no deal was the language that he used.
Hmm.
When I went through coaching school, which I loved, by the way, as a recovering CPA, I did not love that, but I really love coaching school. But one of the concepts that it's a seed that was planted. It's this idea of really good energy, so to speak, is where things are win-win. My win is not at your expense, but yours is not at mine. And there
Yes.
isn't a perfect way of knowing where that is, but there could be a squishy area in the middle. But it's being so, and this is part of the work that I do with clients, even like my succession planning clients. If you're not connected with what's really um, essential for you, what's really non-negotiable for your own well-being, if what's non-negotiable for a mutually rewarding outcome, it's really hard to navigate or design a great outcome, experience what you really want to experience in your life and work, have the kind of success that actually feels good too. If
Hmm.
you don't know your own win, and then it's having the ability to discern, okay, wow, we're doesn't make me wrong, doesn't make them wrong either, but our non-negotiable lines for where it feels like, and if it feels like it's at your expense, it is. You don't need some evidence. Your body is telling you that it's not a real win-win. And so it's being able to discern this is probably a gap that can't be closed.
Hmm.
You could try and that's part of the work that I've been doing the last several years also is facilitating that communication and and being support for people getting more comfortable being candid. Own what that non-negotiable is. If you can't say it out loud, at least in your own mind, be so clear
Yeah.
so that you can discern, yeah, we're not going to close this gap. So now what's my plan given that? And if you're a
I love that.
solopreneur and you're, it's a client that maybe it's a client, do I continue or not?
Yeah, maybe you just don't extend the contract or you finish out what the agreed upon thing was and then you gracefully part ways.
Yeah, so
Um,
you're in integrity,
yeah.
but it's like, and that's such an important word too. And it almost gets overused in values. You see these value statements that companies put out. We have integrity, blah blah blah. It's like, well, of course you do, but it's
Who's going to say I don't have any
yeah, we
integrity?
have no integrity here. But it's that inner consistency, coherence with your own values system. And that's such an important part of the work too, is, you know, values at their core, it's really about matters to you?
Yeah.
What is meaningful to you? And what matters to you matters. Okay.
And that's okay too. Like that's okay. All right, I want to ask you one more question and then we're going to move into the round that I call the little something extra. Um but let's say that you've decided that you're going to stay because sometimes the answer is to stay. Stay in the the client relationship, stay at the job, stay at the whatever it is. And you had mentioned that there was a difference between conflict and you had another word and now I can't think of what it was.
Candor.
Candor. So how do you do that? How do you so stay and come from this place of candor, which I want to also emphasize here because you commented on this that it isn't about, or maybe I'm going to put words in your mouth. So let me back up and say this isn't what you said. This is my version of that. Sometimes it's you're going to stay and you want to have candor, but it isn't about like tearing somebody apart. It isn't about giving them the what for.
Mhm.
So what action do you do? What do you
And here's the thing too, because it kind of gets back to that, what we were talking about with psychological safety.
yeah.
You may, in fact, work someplace where candor is not welcome.
Yeah.
And so it's not always just about whether you can handle candor, it's whether it can be received, right? It's
Yeah.
so if it's a scenario where you are choosing from this conscious kind of grounded place, I am going to stay. And part of the process is to be able to think about, okay, so what do I need for me to simply be at peace with my decision? How do
Mm,
I think about this? Are there any conversations I need to have? Are there uh, beliefs I need to let go? Because what I find quite often is it's the bad feelings are the result, or the bad feelings or the emotional roller coaster kind of experience is the result of unmet expectations.
mm,
And so were are your expectations correct, appropriate? Can you let them go? How can you adjust what if you can't speak candidly, is there, which is to say you can't just go in and just say, hey, the way you do this, this, and this doesn't work for me, and it's not going to be, received. But it's
right.
not that there's still some, and it's part of what I teach clients is like that. It's called conversational intelligence.
Yeah.
So it's marshaling your own emotional intelligence skills to be able to have effective conversations that may redraw that line of um, whatever it is that's really a problem for you. And it's being able to say, can I redraw some boundary? Can I simply initiate a conversation to clarify expectations?
Yes.
So it's using, Brene Brown talks about this a lot too. It's like, because she talks a lot about assumptions. The story I'm telling myself
Yeah.
is, it's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I love helping clients really think about, okay, so what's going to be my strategy going forward? And I now call this the power shift. So it's it's taking the power that you've given other people, taking some of that back to be able to say, I'm owning my decision to stay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to also practice some new ways of communicating to either redraw those boundaries or clarify my role, the expectations for me. It could
Mhm.
be re-clarifying with a client if there is an engagement. The scope it's not scope creep, it's scope take over my life scope. you know and so I'm going to have that conversation in a way that again is aligned with my integrity.
Hmm.
It's aligned with my values around who I am and how I want to show up. And it's really grounded in, I have a sense of the specific emotional intelligence skills that I will need to cultivate
Hmm.
and stand in or act with in conversations going forward. And maybe there's some practices around, whether it's deep breathing before you go talk to somebody, but it's just knowing that you don't have to leave. You can start to come up with, again, just a new way of looking at it
Hmm.
and behaving yourself so that you can be at peace with it.
I think
Even if
that,
you're not excited, you're at
yeah.
peace with your decision. And one last thing on that, you get off, like one of my coaches said, Laurie, when you sit on the fence, it hurts your butt. And when you are in your head, swirling, swirling, swirling around this place, this person, and you're really struggling, and I hate it here, and it's getting off of that emotional internal um, hamster wheel.
Yeah. Or fence, like you said, like stop sitting on the fence.
Yeah, so it's like, because you're making an intentional conscious
Hmm.
choice, and you're going to, we will work on a game plan that will help you feel good about your decision. But with time, especially, you'll gain these skills that you will use the rest of your life, not
Yes.
settling,
Right.
not rationalizing why you just got to take it, but where you can be at peace with the situation because you're clear on what you're getting out of it, because you are getting something out of it too. Like I had
Yeah.
a client where the situation was awful, 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 and then come back to, I'm staying, and here's why. And there were these, because in the swirl, you lose connection with, but here's where this role does serve me.
Hmm.
This is where these kind of clients, they do serve me. So I'm shifting my focus. And it can take some practice. And that's where, that coaching uh, time can be well spent to just, recognizing here's the swirl, but then there's also this over here.
Yeah.
They
I
can
think
both be true.
being able to recognize what are your expectations and are your expectations the same as the other person's, and being willing to have a candid conversation about expectations from a place of, I'm going to say, curiosity.
Curiosity. And really it's kind of like going into that conversation, it's just about, it's not being candid in terms of you're not blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's more of like, help me understand, because I've been thinking that I needed to do X, Y, and Z. And
Hmm.
yet here's what, it's what happened. Um, I um I didn't get the bonus, or I didn't, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That was the um and this is kind of important too. It's like the fact, whatever the facts are of the situation, and then here's your perception.
Yeah.
So being able to kind of lay that out, hey, this happened, whatever the fact is, and it has me thinking and wondering if I am if my assumption, if I've been making assumptions about,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm should be doing, or, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's knowing that they may have unmet expectations because they know, they're not communicating, and you have them too. And it's, there's, of course, there's not going to be a meeting of the mind, but you can get potentially some measure of peace
I
from just
like
like,
it. You keep saying peace.
yeah, a measure of peace that, okay, we've actually had a conversation to clarify, because they may not be doing this with ill intent. They are making all kinds of assumptions themselves.
Yes. That. okay, we're going to end there because I think that is so critical of this idea of you're going to stay. Let's clarify expectations because you both may not really be on the same page. But I like that you brought in this, like, what is the actual fact versus what are some of the expectations? Because expectations and fact are not necessarily the same thing. So, Laurie, this has been brilliant. Thank you so much. I always like to wrap up with a couple questions about you. So, one of my favorite questions to ask people right now is what's something that's bringing you joy right now?
Oh gosh. I would say right now it's okay, this is silly.
I love silly.
Fall clothes. I got a couple new
I get it.
sweaters
Yes.
and I'm embracing the change. It was not easy, but like chocolate brown colors and okay,
Oh,
it's so simple.
I love that. I love chocolate brown. I love to wear chocolate brown.
And I love to eat it. Okay.
Yeah, of course, same. Yeah, yeah, me too. Okay. What's something exciting going on in your business right now?
It is this shift. So it's my own, it's not a power shift so much as a real pivot in my focus to this work that feels so important and at a deeper, more personal level. And so I've been in this creative process for a while. And okay, I didn't mention this earlier, but ADHD does not make this easy to just finish. So I am in the process of updating my like the messaging on my
Yeah.
website, LinkedIn profile. And so it is like exciting to just be in this energy of um, lifting up women in a way that really helps them to tap into their own personal power. We all
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah.
And, we can have it. We can wear high heels. We can wear sneakers. We can wear brown fuzzy sweaters or not, but it's more of like it's our just who we are as a person. And we deserve it. We deserve to, if we want a career, we deserve work that we enjoy. We deserve to thrive.
I love this focus for your business right now. This idea of really working with women and helping them get clear on stay or go. And then based on their decision, coaching them through that process of resiliency, discernment, peace, and candor, and
Yeah.
doing it all from this conversational intelligence place that is like one of your just, it's so you. So I'm just so excited about this change and not again, you've been doing this for a long time but making this the real focus right now because it brings you joy that I
Yes.
love that. Okay,
Yeah.
what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I would say connect with me on LinkedIn and stay tuned. That profile will be changing. Also on my website, which is just laurienichols.com.
Yeah. Yeah. And Laurie's information will be in the show notes. I recommend that you connect with her. She is brilliant. She's lovely. She's so fun. I could sit and be in conversation with you probably for days and just learn. And, we had a whole conversation before we
Oh,
started the
we so
recording. I just love you to pieces. Thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you for being here. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you so much, Nikki. And it's like being a part of my world now it's going to get close to a decade here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for you, the listener, thanks for being here. I would love to hear what was your nugget from today? What was your big takeaway? Where have you found yourself in a situation of like, do I stay or do I walk away? And what was the deciding factor? If you're willing to share, like reach out. I want to hear. Um, and as always, I wish you continued success in all that you're doing. Take care.